Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final reading from An Archive of Care, which has been a wonderfully exciting weekend. And I'm so delighted and honored to see so many of you showing up for the open mic. So we're going to launch into it. But first, I'll give a few thank yous and a land acknowledgement. Thank you to the Toronto Arts Council and our generous audiences for funding today's reading. The land on which I live and work is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. As a descendant of settlers, I'm grateful for the work of the late Justice Murray Sinclair, who passed away on November 4th. Along with his colleagues, Chief Wilton Littlechild and Dr. Marie Wilson, he heard close to 7,000 pieces of testimony from those impacted by Canada's residential school system. It was a 6-year process and a traumatic one for those who offered the testimony and those who heard it. The Commission produced 94 calls to action. According to Eva Jewell of the Yellowhead Institute in September of this year, only 13, perhaps 14 calls have been answered because, as she puts it, quote, Canada and its citizenry refuse to challenge violent systems or consider their role within them, end of quote. The TRC and calls to action were an immense act of care by all those who contributed. And in honor of Justice Sinclair and his colleagues, I'm going to share one of those calls to action as we begin today's program. And it relates to language, since that is the medium we're showcasing today. That is the call to action number 14, which has not yet been answered. We call upon the federal government to enact an Aboriginal Languages Act that incorporates the following principles. 1. Aboriginal languages are a fundamental and valued element of Canadian culture and society, and there is an urgency to preserve them. 2. Aboriginal language rights are reinforced by the treaties. 3. The federal government has a responsibility to provide sufficient funds for Aboriginal language revitalization and preservation. 4. The preservation, revitalization, and strengthening of Aboriginal languages and cultures are best managed by Aboriginal people and communities. 5. Funding for Aboriginal language initiatives must reflect the diversity of Aboriginal languages. And I'll also say a big thank you to my colleagues on the draft collective, and that one is with us here, two are with us here, Ardish Dhaliwal, our treasurer, Rolf Meindl, who is the helper in all things. And also we have been joined for this wonderful weekend by Huria Jalalzai, who has been our publicist. So big thank you to all of those. And for our first set, we're going to start with Viola Tian. I'll mute my microphone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. And I'm really excited to share some of my poems with everyone. And I had the privilege to join the earlier session with a lot of other amazing poets. So yeah, I'll share my first piece. Oh, I don't think I can share right now because I'm not a co-host, but I'll just read it then, just save some time. Well,
Co-host.
Thank you so much. Okay. The first one that I'll be sharing today is called Viola's 19. I've touched on themes like trauma and also resilience, and I hope you like it. Viola's 19. the year I moved to Canada for the first time. At 19, an MRI came back with hollow bones strung together like bees, tight strings, yet to be struck with love songs. At a university dorm, a white boy splashed his favorite cocktail all over my body, then his hands. I went dark, like the lights in his room. More of him came, the hardening ice in gin and tonic, his fingers calloused from gripping. The opening act, cacophony. I begged to be restored, but he slept me leafy. My shaking voice drowned in the rain that poured again and again. Please don't. I'm a virgin, please. He laughed and told me to stop faking innocence. I bet you like white guys just like all the other Asian sluts. He opened me up like an envelope and an award show inside the checklist for your coronation. The next morning, in mute, I pieced myself back, yet your mouth spitted me out, insides scattered in the hallway. All your white college buddies cheered, applauding your performance, your ascendance to the throne. But do they know the only difference between a king and a tyrant is undeserved power? Another stolen artifact on your white shelf. The next day, the police came. You told them it was just a rehearsal, that I was curious about my timber and begged you to finish the whole act. Me, paper thin, easily folded in half into nothing. Repeat, repeat. Wind makes a blast through my exposed white bones. You hope I bury them. I hope your fingers bleed. Forgetting is an option for you, but not for me. So that's the first piece. And then second one, I wrote this because I was watching US election with a lot of my friends. So this poem was inspired from the recent US election results. And I hope you guys enjoy it. It's called The Red Wants Me to Go With Everything and Go With Nothing. Yesterday died in a sea of red. To say red is a country slide and stop rather than exfoliated, rather than want to exfoliate it from my blood-stained mouth. I chew on my own teeth to make room for my own voice. Now my mouth is full and part of silence and all blood. In my dream, I reach for a hand in Gaza. Now the blood's on my own hands and I can't get it off. Victoria Aviar will agree. No matter how hard you try to hide it, I see it all over your hands. I can't hide. Blood is the smell of November to me, and it moves with me. The red can hide more than just bloodstains. It swallows you whole, then spits you out like a pomegranate seed. I was promised I wouldn't go hungry as long as I stayed red, that the red would feed. But I peeled back the slogans, found only empty shells. Now I'm just a seed and hungry again. Now all blood in between my thighs. I'm told to open them wide, but not too wide, otherwise the red will flush me. I'll be pregnant with the red, and he doesn't want that. The red wants me and me only, because then I'll go with everything and I'll go with nothing. And the last one that I'll share today is called 안녕. So this is in Korean, 안녕, it can have two meanings. One is hello and the other one is goodbye. So I'll read this piece. I wrote this when I was in Korea, actually, when I was vacationing there. Every time I say 안녕, I bleed twice. The actual inherent antonym we should have realized years ago was us. Whoever brought me here has brought me home. Emerald benches, wrinkle, pointless resistance to time. I cut out the yellow parts of my hair and our photographs, the two parts of my latte in a stalemate, like the sky above, half ash, half cyan, flashing. I wonder if they ever hesitate to fall, even if they've known their ending all along. Yeah, that's I'll just only share these three today, but thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Viola. Next up, we have Kate Duncan. And I'd just like to offer to all of the folks reading today to feel free to offer a content warning at the start if you feel it's appropriate. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my screen too. I have two poems for you this afternoon. I'm just trying to get this up. Let's try that. There we go. There's a specific type of seed dispersal that's done by ants, and it's significant ecologically, called the ant-plant relationship. And that type of dispersal is called myrmecochory. How quickly my eyesight returns as Nokumhalma Pansy and I spent a bent night under the easterning bone blue moon. We harvest tiny tubers from trout lily, deep beneath a forest blanket of Aurelian blossoms, with her streaked crimson pistils, long, clitoral. We peel husks from pansy's chosen crop till sunrise lights a centuries-old woodland community, each erect stalk with only and ever one or two leaves. A forest carpet 7 years in the making. Wind caresses wave greeting wave of tepilated flowers, spotted like brook trout, and then gone after early summer's heat. Children of spring, they emanate a wakefulness to our sensuality and mortality too, Lucisum. In Emily's herbarium and my garretarium, giggles Nokum. Don't forget how, Nosisim, she whispers tears in my ear and feeds me speckled leaves, chewed to a sweet pulp. Let me be captured and planted underground, carried and cared for by ants, like these button bulbs, no bigger than sunflower's seed, one giving rise to an ephemeral, the other a sun-seeking face in heavy obeisance, only, and finally, to the westerning twilight. My first poem, the second poem, actually, I have a language warning with a word at toward the very end of the poem. It starts with C. There's a term used by the Spanish poet Federico Garcia Lorca that refers to an artist's sense of the presence of death, and the term is duende. Of course I'd write, of lashes spilling shadows down your cheeks, of parted tamarind lips and languid hips imprinting my couch when you have your own 2 floors above, of chiclet-shaped buttons on a shirt undone, below uneven collarbones jutting haughtily, glistening, your desire, of your neck arched as a finely burnished harp, and a swath of jet black loosed and shimmering across the pillow. Of course I'd notice the satin of your skin, the texture of unspoken, unspeakable wanting. If I could touch and wake you once again, I would trace the curves of your breasts beneath the soft check of female flannel with just the right amount of boy. Of course I could see. There was nothing ambiguous about you, though you didn't know it then. And then, fascinated to your tergiversations, I failed to retreat across the cruel and tender bridge you offered. The ache in my heart, a counterpoint to that in my cunt. Tentatively, reverently, synapses alight, fingertips conjuring what the mind has shuttered. I reach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, there's little hearts floating up for that. And next up, we have Priya Ramsing. Priya, where are you?
Hi, I'm here. Thanks, Maria, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm reading a short excerpt from a novel that I'm in the works that I'm writing. So here I'll start. Her daughter spends a few weeks in the apartment, cleaning out her mother's belongings, with the intention of giving away most of the items to the Salvation Army, and she asks if I want anything. When I walk into the apartment, I realize it's the first time I've been that far inside. Sometimes I would help Mrs. Cortez take her bags into the kitchen, which was closest to the door, but I never ventured much further. The space is tidy, warmed by framed family photographs, colorful cushions, and plants. What are you going to do with the orchids? I ask. Good question. I didn't think about the plants. Do you want to take them? There are 3 orchid plants and 2 are in half bloom. Staring at the purple and yellow hues, I suddenly wonder if I can provide the kind of fostering they need to survive. I don't have any plants in my apartment. What kind of environment would encourage orchids to grow, to morph into plump oval buds that eventually explode into dreamlike blooms that last for weeks? Clearly, they were thriving in Mrs. Cortez's apartment. If moved into mine, a foreign place down the hall with an unfamiliar host, would the buds be too startled to open? Would they reverse their decision and retreat out of fear? Would I stunt their growth? Intimidated by the task, I want to decline, but suspect they will be discarded if I don't agree to take them. Sure, they're lovely, I say. Anything else you see, please go ahead. It will save me from having to haul it all away, her daughter says as she continues to pack. I walk timidly into the bedroom. A 4-poster bed fills the most of the room and an old dressing table sits in one corner. It looks like an antique. I picture Mrs. Cortez sitting in front of the mirror, brushing her gray hair, which was usually elegantly coiled into a bun at the top of her head. And I wonder how many times she sat at that table, primping before an evening out. Perhaps when she was getting ready for a date with her late husband. Perhaps they ate dinners out or attended fancy events where she wore pearl necklaces around her throat and dark red lipstick. Who was my former neighbor, dog walker, and companion shopper? Do you like the table? I hear the voice behind me and turn to face her daughter's half smile. It's beautiful. You can take it if you like. My mother got it as a wedding gift from my father. She used to sit there every night before bed and brush her long hair. When she was younger, it used to be jet black and wavy, and when it started graying, she refused to dye it. I look at the table and imagine a younger woman gently running the bristles through the waves as they grew softer with each brush. I wonder how she felt when she found the first gray strand poking up from behind the mass of black. A knowing smile, perhaps, a gentle nod, and the continuation of brush strokes, with little thought about the meeting. Are you sure you don't want it? I ask. It would be nice to have, but I cannot ship it to Winnipeg. Besides, I know how fond she was of you. I'm sure she would like you to have it. I'm stunned. She talked about me? Her daughter knew about the shopping trips and Fergus and what else? I never once invited the lady to my home for a cup of tea. I couldn't, I say. It will only go to a stranger, and I prefer that it stays with someone she cared for. I don't deserve it. My eyes begin to blur with water. I turn my head away and force the tears back. How dare they? It's not my place to feel remorse for a woman that knew nothing of my own fondness. I turn back with dry eyes. Okay, how heavy is it? I lift one side to test the weight and I realize I will need help. Let me take the plants to my apartment and get a dolly. I'll be right back. I end up taking the orchids, the dressing table, a few kitchen utensils, and 2 framed pictures of Mrs. Cortez. One shows her as a woman in her 20s, laughing and cradling a small dog, her black hair tied back into a ponytail. The other is more recent. The woman who Fergus looked at with adoring eyes, who sat in my passenger seat and reassured me with her tranquility as she sits elegantly in a field of flowers. Perhaps it was taken by her daughter in Winnipeg because I don't recognize the field of yellow. As I wheel the items down the hall, remorse envelops me. How does she spend her time? Every day, all alone in her apartment. I was just down the hall in my own place and I never bothered to ask. That's it.
Thank you, Priya. And next up, we have Penny Weinstock. Let me do some pinning. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to switch to gallery so I'm not looking at my own face here. My name is Penny Weinstock. My work identity is psychotherapist and shamanic healer. And my main connection to writing is as an almost lifelong, till once I started to read and write, a journal writer. And the archive of care is a theme that's close to my heart. I'll be reading today from a work in process with a working title of Words as Medicine. And these pieces, of which I will read just one, are passionately written and delicately, at this point, edited. And the first one is called Grief, So What? And I hadn't thought about a content warning, but if you are in an extreme or imminent or immediate place of bereavement, this might be hard to hear, but on the other hand, it might not be. I will just give that warning. I know, because I see, that there is a massive load of unexpressed grief and fear rolling around this planet. Uncried tears weighing down our precious hearts over our own personal losses and the suffering of others. Much of it is flipped quickly into anger and even violence. So, when a colleague invited me to a gathering to bring consciousness to grief, at first I thought, that's important. Then on second thought, nah, I don't want to do that. I would much rather pick a fight with someone close to me or rail against wrongs being committed afar than risk falling into a pit of anguished wailing. Anger feels strong and grief feels vulnerable. We all know which, between strength and vulnerability, our culture trains us to value. I have to see and forgive how easily I can turn my vulnerable sorrow into petty conflict and anger. I must stretch to also find compassion for those wounded boys in power who slaughter masses of people in avoidance of grief, among other aspects of their humanity. Repetitive news of their killing and torture drags me to anguished wailing. Anguished wailing, enough of it for the moment, can temporarily clear my embodied soul of enough grief to remember joy and pleasure. Anguished wailing that is less than enough for the moment leaves my nose stuffed, my breathing blocked, and gets in the way of singing. I love singing. I have always loved singing. I love singing. Love. As one brave, depressed poet put it, in the future we all face together, love is the only engine of survival. Thank you for this opportunity and for all of your faces here.
Oh, thank you so much, Penny. One more in this set, and that is Lynn Tate. Lynn, where are you? I'm looking for Lynn. Are you here? Oh, there you are. Hooray. Can unmute yourself, Lynn, and go right ahead. Launch in.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do first off, Alethea Speaks Out. Am I unmuted? Unmute.
No, you're good. You're unmuted.
Okay, am I all right? Three things can't Alethea speaks out. Three things can't be hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth, attributed to Buddha. When I go home to my holy well, my hair will weave itself into a nest. I plant birds for the lady next door to marvel at, though birds frighten me and say so. I love to throw myself against walls of mirrors, see 1,000 heads, all agreeable and in love. What happens in the shadows? You'll have to ask the other one, the one without feet. Oh, how she loves curves and angles, scattered and warped. Straightening out her handiwork is so tiresome, and best done in the desert. Less distractions. Goddess of lies, calm your tornado of sticks. Throw away the pointed hat. Call my pretty name and I shall answer, an obedient dog hoping to chase a bone, but instead you toss the horn of truth downstream. Jump in and swim against everything good. Pretend to drown before you'd hug any righteous coastline. To be footless yet have a foothold on so many souls frustrates the Hades out of me. Anytime someone asks for the truth, I tell them, but it's seldom the answer they're looking for. Okay, and the next one is I had that up here. We go. In 2012, we lost our son from a fentanyl overdose in 2012. He was 29 years of age. So I've been writing a heck of a lot about grief, and hope my next manuscript that deals a lot with loss finds a publisher. Grief is. If you plan to say grief is, please stop right there. It's never what you think, even when it grabs you, spins you around, stares you in the face, tells you what you don't want to hear. Without warning, it is wind, water, salt. The word falls like a head on a pillow, a scream only you can hear. Nothing is concrete about this noun, its soulmate verb. Poems in the thousands penned in its honor. The word entangles, wraps itself around your bones for life. There is no season ripe for its harvest or final call. You can't sweat it out. Grief grinds frost flowers into flakes, carves out snow angels, same face, frozen leer, chilled puddle by spring, the shape of a smirk or a black eye shining inward. There's no journey here, no destination, no end game. Anyone familiar with how it rushes in, pushes back, knows how memories press against the head in waves, pouring down into heart's bottomless pool. Some days we float, some days we choke, some days we drown. And the last one is from my book, You Break It, You Buy It. That's with Guernica Editions. Came out last year, and it's called Chaos. Hunts as at forest edges, can't enter unless invited in as set of vampires, beckons glib and smug, come play with me, let me in. Pine needles drop, leaves curl with every word uttered. We've lost count, the confused, the lost, the dead and dying, but not this one. This one counts them all. We're blinded, our mourning so dark we invited in, relying on our kindness, colorless creature slithers before us, between, behind, inside us. Black, brackish eye at the back of its neck blinks. Deserts appear beneath its belly. Hurricanes fly out of its mouth. Hearts and knives fall to earth. We pick up one or the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. It's time for a break. Now, here is my thought. We're at 4:37. We started a bit late because of some technical flustering. Can we make up some time and start our next set at 4:40? Or should we just do like 5 minutes plus a few and just run 5 minutes late? I'm in favor of that one, but is anybody feeling like they need to stay really on track? I'm fine with either. Put it in the chat. Are we okay with, so that would take us to 4:45. Yeah, 4:45. And then we'll just do, like, each set is meant to be 20 minutes. Okay, let's do that. Just to take a breath, 4:45. And we'll be on with our next set. Have a little break, everyone. Thank you.
You pause the recording or? Okay, it's 4:45. So welcome back, everyone. That was a great first set, some great readings. The next four people, four readers, you've been posted in the chat. So we'll just jump right in with our first reader, Hannah Brown. Take it away, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm here. Oh, hi. Thanks for this opportunity. The first writer to put her name to a piece of writing, as far as we know, was Enheduanna. Her Descent of Banana inspired what I'm reading from, 3 Days on No Daddy Lane. A father built homes for himself and his daughters on Celeste Lane, but the neighbors started calling it No Daddy Lane because that was the first thing out of his daughters' mouths, no matter what he said. Iris swings her briefcase as she heads up the stairs to the front door of a small bungalow and rings the doorbell. On the back deck, Izzy and Dizzy are lying naked on chaiselong. Did you hear that? Yeah, Izzy. Do you think it's that guy trying to repossess our deck furniture again? Like panthers, Izzy and Dizzy pad down the steps of the back deck and crouch underneath. They listen. Iris goes around to the back and climbs up the steps to the deck. No one. A pile of comic books, empty beer bottles, but no Izzy and Dizzy. Iris flops down on a chaise-longue. There's an open pack of cigarettes there, almost full. Isabel? Darlene? No answer. Where are you two? Iris takes a cigarette and lights it, flicking the ashes. She flips through a ragged copy of Love and Rockets. She looks at her watch. No, Daddy said you'd be here. 5 minutes later, smoke drifts up through the cracks of that old wooden deck. Iris jumps up. Oh my God, I've set the place on fire. And then, from below, a duet of two voices. We're coming to get you, Iris, they chorus, all Night of the Living Dead. Izzy and Dizzy sashay up those rickety steps, naked, swiveling on the balls of their feet as if they were in high heels. Izzy's right arm stretches out, waving a cigarette. Dizzy does the same, only with her left arm. Iris realizes she hasn't started a fire. What the hell kind of cigarettes are these? Elite from the Tyondonaga Reserve, Mohawk, seed to seed, nation to nation. What it says here on the sticker. We get Sweet Jimmy to drive us to the reserve. Sweet Jimmy, yeah, him and his Honda, hoping for a little romantic twofer. We let him think it was possible, Iris, which it was. We do everything together, like Sweet Jimmy. Izzy says this with her mouth half closed, and Dizzy cracks up. Iris laughs. You too, still doing that buzz thing? We need to talk to each other more than people like, ever since grade 9. Dizzy chimes in. More than the teachers like, for sure. But the other kids liked it, so that's when they started calling us Izzy and Dizzy. They say this together, mouths half closed, and then laugh out loud. So do you like the work at your school? A lot. The kids like us. Too much. A couple of them painted the Buzz Sisters on our lockers and got us in trouble with the principal. Yeah, she was going to get us transferred, but the parents of the kids we support went to the trustee. I mean, like at least 8 of them went, and Booyah, the principal, was the one who got transferred. Not just for that, she'd been playing big boss with other things. Let me know what school she got transferred to, says Iris. If she's like that, I bet I could get support workers in her school to sign up. Dizzy opens the lid of the blue ice chest and gets out 3 beers. The sisters sit beside each other on the porch swing, legs crossed tight at the ankles, one arm holding the elbow of the other as they smoke. Effective modesty. Iris acts like nothing is unusual. Our neighbor complained about us last night and said we sounded like raccoons. So now I can say I speak 2 languages, English and Raccoonish, on my applications. You're leaving, Dizzy? Oh, just a sec. Sorry, my page dropped. I beg your pardon. Sorry. So are you leaving? No, but no, we're not leaving. Iris breathed softly and handed them both a pen. They took the cards from her next and signed their names, Izzy with a star and Dizzy with the same. Are they going to find out that we signed? No, they only know how many signed, not who signed. That's good. But Iris, that's not the only reason we signed. Why else did you sign? Because of you, Iris. The way you didn't make any notice of us coming up here naked. You just played it straight. And I like the play you did too with the 2 pens at the same time. So up the union, they clink bottles.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah. Okay, and next up, Yolande House.
Thank you so much. I prepared an accessibility document, so I will put that in the chat. And so thank you so much for including me. And just a second. Okay. So I'm going to read some excerpts from my new essay, Disability Tax, which is in the current issue of the Fiddlehead, and I'll give a content warning for ableism and ableist language. Disability tax, age 45, medical bills, 1. Massage and physiotherapy for the pinched nerves in her arms and the bursitis in her shoulder. There's no medical insurance coverage, the doctor tells her over the phone. But if you can find the money, please go to physiotherapy. You need it. $5,000 every 3 years. 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. Steady work. Her audiologist warns her dwindling hearing will prevent her from securing most jobs until she can purchase a hearing aid. She hopes to work from home until she can afford the thousands of dollars they cost, even after insurance. Age 40. Grocery bills and expensive restaurants. A strict diet to recover from her second and much more serious stomach acid flare-up. She avoids acidic foods like chocolate, alcohol, lemon and lime, tomatoes, caffeine, red meat, grease, and hot spice. Expensive vegan restaurants offer menu items more easily adapted to her dietary needs, but frequent mistakes by staff still send her home with her hand pressed to her belly. Hospital and medication bills. Multiple hospital visits and 4 changes of medication. $10,000 over 10 months, not including living expenses. 1/3 of her savings from 6 years of full-time work. Her money runs out after a year of illness. She secures online work and a full-time in-person job, teaching university students, running out of money again after startup costs. She does her best to manage her flaring symptoms. And here there's a cut. Age 15, $1,000. Her first and last set of hearing aids, covered by the government and her dad's work, the cheapest kind. In her 20s, she'll discover it's the expensive ones that she needs. Her sense of safety after leaving her violent mother's home. 2 panic attacks in 1 week leave her breathless. Why is this happening? Age 10. A lifetime of insecurity from verbal abuse. Are you deaf? Her mom will begin haranguing her soon, not knowing she's partly right. A lifetime of broken trust from physical abuse. Mom's violence flares, fists and feet flying into her stomach. She lives in constant vigilance and fear, scanning every moment of the 2-story townhouse for the next explosion. Age 5. Supplemental parenting from family. Mom moves her from Prince Edward Island to Calgary, Alberta. She leaves her dad, her grandparents, and her aunt, who's like a second mother. After they move into their new brown townhouse, she asks why. Mom tells her with glowing eyes she was young and wanted excitement. Age 0. Learned fear and fractured trust leads to future health issues. She must overhear her parents' screaming fights. Maybe this is when the chronic tension started. scrunched up in a tiny ball in her crib as if petrified muscles could provide shelter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yolande. Okay, and up next, Justin Ancheta.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen now, and right. Okay, so this is a piece that was just published in the Tahoma Literary Review this summer, and it is titled "The F-14 Tomcat Aerial Combat Guide for Parents of Children Who Stutter and Cope Through Fixation with Military Aircraft." This guide provides the necessary procedures to effectively parent your child who A, is a chronic stutterer, B, possesses an overactive imagination, and C, harbors a fixation on aerial combat and military aircraft. Your stuttering child suffers significant emotional strain from shame, embarrassment, and feeling rushed with their speech. This puts them at a significant disadvantage in conversational engagements. See Figure 1. The following suggestions can assist in providing a significant boost to your stuttering child's safety and security when applied with care, patience, and compassion. Figure 1. Shame can hinder a stuttering child's success in stressful one-on-one engagements. 1. Speak with your child in an unhurried way, pausing frequently. Wait a few seconds after your child finishes when your child finishes what they are saying before you talk. See Figure 2. Figure 2. Talking in a hurried way will make your child feel they need to communicate faster, suppressing their ability to speak effectively for themselves. "What are you doing?" barks the stuttering child's dad from above. "Hey, speak up. Hurry up." Preparing to speak, the stuttering child straps himself in the cockpit of an F-14 fighter jet. The roar of twin F-110 turbofan engines is a choir swelling in his ears. At a blink, the world smears to a blur. Words catapult out of his mouth at 266 kilometers per hour. The vocal cords in a 12-year-old's throat were not designed to operate at such velocities, but his panicked body doesn't care. He punches the throttle before he knows what's happening. Just go, 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 go. Pull back on the stick to evade father's incoming attack. Bank hard to the left. His body tries rising skyward to get away, but his malfunctioning speech generates insufficient lift as it hurtles off the flight deck. The brutal acceleration shears his wings from the airframe. The engines flame out and his useless throat sputters fumes. Blood rushes to his head as he tumbles into the ocean below. 2. Reduce the number of questions you ask your child. Children speak more freely if they are expressing their own ideas rather than answering an adult's questions. See Figure 3. Figure 3. Firing multiple questions at your child will quickly overwhelm their defenses, hindering their ability to respond or speak for themselves. The early warning radar scans for either of his parents entering the room. It detects a new contact. Identification friend or foe signals flash the incoming body as hostile. His father launches heat-seeking questions as he comes into visual range. Triggered alarms blast the inside of his head. He dives into verbal evasive maneuvers, but the cramped one-bedroom apartment affords little space to dodge the incoming interrogations. He has to get away from his dad's intrusive probing, ejecting little white lies into his speech. He hopes the flares lighting up the space between them will deflect her attention. "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm just working on some stuff." He flips the printed page down, starts writing spurious math questions under a notebook. He turns his head, sees his father circling him, eyeing the papers filed under his desk. His father's gaze is an air-to-air missile slamming into his side. "What is that? Oh, garbage here, garbage there, garbage everywhere. Get rid of it." The stuttering child's mouth jitters open in response, but nothing comes out. His face freezes hearing the enemy lock-on signal. He is seconds away from another missile impact. Nowhere to go. Are his poems and stories really junk and garbage? Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, and our next reader will be Kadir Bhuvan. Kadir?
Yes, thank you. I will also share my screen. This sounds right. Can you see okay? All right, and hopefully you can
Volume
hear
is
me
very
too.
low.
Oh, okay.
There we go. That's
Is
good.
this any better? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, folks. Hi, I'm Kadir. I use he and they pronouns. I am reading this erasure poem I made actually at Tyler Pennock's class, who was the Tyler was the curator of the very first session at the series. And yeah, I was inspired by one of the poems we read, which was Billy Ray Belcourt's Black Art poem called Treaty 8 in his collection, Indian Coping Mechanisms. So this poem is called Dreaming an Alternate Past for the Futurist Manifesto. And this image you see here is kind of a faded out version of the actual manifesto image that I found. When I came across the Futurist Manifesto, for folks that may be unfamiliar with it, it's an incendiary manifesto that was written by Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Marinetti in 1909. It calls for basically like a rejection of the past and embracing speed, growth, and industrialization, and rejoices man dominating Earth. I found that futurism as a philosophy, both in politics and art, was a precursor to fascism and pervades a lot of our current reality today. And it made me think about the power of art and poetry to move people into action and the responsibility that comes with it. All right, so let's get into it. I dream another past, send off a wish into the galaxy where all space and time exists at once, scatter seeds for an alternate futurism rooted in love, land, poetry, and revolution. Declaration of Futurism. This declaration has appeared in Paris, Figaro of February 20th. We glorify love. Our poetry will revolt. Ecstasy and slumber we exalt. We, the splendor of the world, adorned over exploding powder. We will sing the praises of the earth. Fervor, the primordial elements. There is beauty in struggle. We bow to time and space, the omnipresent, eternal. We will glorify the ideas of woman. Museums, libraries, fight all cowardice. We will sing the great masses. We will sing the multicolored and polyphonic, the nocturnal moon serpents, the clouds over sunny rivers sparkling, horizon fluttering. We will free countless cemeteries, unknown to each other, beings of form and color. We are flowers, we. Thank you.
Thank you, Kadir. And the last reader in this second set will be Melanie Margle.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just have one short poem to read. It's only water. I came upon a group of men huddled together within barbed wire. The trees beyond waved in the cold wind. In the night, the rain fell down. I reassured my friend as I held him close. Fear not, it is only water. After a year, a bitter year of hardship and insult, of hard work and loss, winter came upon us. The snow fell down upon our shoulders. But I calmed my friend as I said to him with tears in my eyes, "Fear not, it is only snow." And finally, when all hope seemed lost and the murderers came, hitting and cutting, I took my dear friend and held him close and stroked his cheek and told him, "It is only blood." And when the end seemed near, I kissed his lips and whispered in his ear, "It is only love." Thank you.
Thank you, Murray, and thank you to Hannah, Yolande, Justin, and Kadir. 5:06, we were set to start the next set at 5:10. Let's make it 5:12. So once again, short 5-minute break just for a little stretch. Again, thank you so much for everyone there, and we'll post the next set of readers in the chat. So see you back here at 5:12. Thank you. Start the recording again. We have 3 more readings in this set. So coming up next is Saru Sharda.
Thank you. I know we only have 4 minutes, so I've put a little bit of background into the chat, including a content warning for this piece. It's my first time sharing in a space like this, so I'm feeling a little anxious, particularly given the incredible talent that has already shared. But I will go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can folks see the screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. As I gaze out of the window, I realize that I have referred to my dad by his bed number. It shocks me. I know I am guilty of not remembering my own patients' names sometimes. They are the appendix or the lady with the blood pressure of 200, defined by the ailment that has brought them into my care. But my dad was my dad. How had he become bed number 8? The intensive care unit team seemed to prefer bed number to ailment. Perhaps there were too many ailments to name. Patients were rarely referred to by name or profession. They were not identified by whom they loved or whether they preferred red wine to white. Nobody knew how many languages they spoke or what happened to be their favorite song. Where was home? What stories had they told and received? The poetry they had written or the math problems they had solved were irrelevant here. Here, amongst the monitors and pumps, the alarms and the questions, they were simply a number, a geographical mark on the map of a square, intensive care unit. An incessant monitor alarm interrupts my thoughts. I know them all intimately, those beeps. I do not even have to be in the room to know that the oxygen saturations are dropping. The pitch, the deepening of the beep, 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 as the oxygen plummets to levels dangerous and unknown is familiar to my ears, almost ingrained after all these years of training, of working in the operating room. I know the names of all the drugs Dad is on, their doses and side effects, which one should be titrated down and which should be upped. I know the acronyms, the MRSAs and the VAPs, the SBTs and HSVs, because that is how my brain has been trained. It is the brain of an anesthesiologist. I look at these numbers day in, day out, patient after patient, case after case. I listen, I adjust, I give drugs, I reverse hypotension and cause unconsciousness. I know. But now my anesthesiologist's brain, usually so orderly and precise, is all askew, because now this is a daughter's brain, a daughter and a dad, a brain infection in his brain, leaving her brain all muddled. My heart feels muddled too. I harden it in order to move through the confusion. I pay attention, tuning up the anesthesiologist's brain to quieten down the static of the daughter brain. I push the daughter away and usher in the doctor. I look at the numbers, I ask questions, I write copious notes on the whiteboard that hangs on the back wall of Dad's room. I ensure that my doctor heart prevails and banish the soft, impulsive daughter heart into a tiny dark corner of my ribcage. I talk and text and ruminate with all my physician friends, asking questions of the hematologist I went to medical school with, the neurologist my colleague is married to. I reach out to the infectious disease specialist I met at that conference once, and the physiatrist who is my husband's friend. They do their best, respond to my unanswerable questions with anything from optimism to pity. They send their love and precise knowledge in aliquots, like presents, packaged up neatly with tiny little bows. I present these packages to the ICU team at every ward round and am met with varying degrees of disdain. No matter how carefully I arrange my words, no matter how diligently I pore over the information during the 4 a.m. breastfeeding sessions with my son, in order to present it just so, there is always the same faint smell of disregard. The longer the ICU stay goes on, the better I become at the dance. I must be articulate enough to be taken seriously, but show enough reverence so as to not step on the lead dancer's toes. The boundaries are slippery and jagged, and I scrape myself many times. I am one of them, but I am not. I'm allowed to know, but not too much. I'm allowed to speak, but not too well. I am allowed to ask, but not the difficult questions. It is after every such gut-wrenchingly awful ward round that my muddled daughter's heart emerges, angry at having been exiled, and all the little packages and all the little bows unfurl into heaps of confusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saru. Next up is Rachel. Rachel Fulford.
Oh dear, I'm having problems with my camera right now.
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, that's good. And I did post an accessibility link of my poetry. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second. I'm having a bit of a technical issue.
Just take a moment, Rachel, maybe and
Sure.
repost that so it's the last thing up, and then take your time with the
Or do you want to switch to the next person, Maria? Or
just give Rachel a minute, but Rachel, if you don't mind just reposting your accessibility thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be available to people. Just as the
I
most
will do that. Sorry, just 1 second. And if people want to stretch, this is a good time to do that. It's funny, my camera was working earlier, but it's decided to take the rest of the night off. But that's all right. I wanted to thank Christina Ferraru, who's my writing teacher. And I'm going to post in the chat if anyone's interested in joining her workshop, Poetic Self-Expansion, Creative Writing for Modern Contemplatives. We meet remotely every Wednesday at 8 in the morning. And I'll post a link if anyone's interested in joining us. So the first poem is called Tillage. Trowel in the ground, crouched on my knees, to dig and aerate every pot on the balcony. I pull out last year's roots, turn over the soil, sniff and check for that loamy smell of life. Most traces of summer collapse in my hand and release themselves to feed new recruits. Some persist in hard forms that I lay in the compost and name what these stalks used to be. Havana cherry lantana, Dropmore scarlet honeysuckle, Arctic grass, butterfly bush, deep purple lobelia, citronella, sunflower, and last year's starlets, Duchess of Cornwall clematis. I will not begrudge them a memorial for what people survive who do not name their dead. Let no one refuse to give them their due, those bright soldiers of the 9th floor who knew windstorms and neglect when I was stingy with water. Something needs forgiveness, and some needs need to be forgiven, to make space for seedlings, to spread like carpets with banners in spring. The next poem is called Stance, and I wrote this after the election south of the border. Stance. To drop my left shoulder, point the index finger down, away and behind, sends surplus thoughts under topsoil to feed a buried stream. Maybe something will bloom later. Pink lotuses will float up like birds. I wrap my right hand around an invisible candle and conjure the feel of white wax. I bring that hand up, straighten my elbow to make a broken diagonal from left wrist to right. How many have stood this way when trouble required withstanding? The colossal stone lady whipped by North Atlantic winds, and other brick and iron lighthouses buttressed to the beach. What of humans who held a lantern in the dark forest with fingers to lips? Shh, come this way. Your liberty stands here, has always stood. The future is no different when we turn back to the past, a figure 8 of starting again. Infinity's sign looms above, a treasure map and a lesson. I stand today for myself, a spy in the house of distraction and disinformation. I hold my candle alight. Sometimes it dims, but you can't put it out. And the last one is inspired by a tarot card, the tarot card for the moon. Moonwalker. Sort a deck of cards, divide them into suits, take them down to the lake, watch them float. Drawn up from the shore, under half a stern moon, a scorpion's child, painted blood red, glitters and hauls his brittle body along a narrow path that winds and curves. On one side, a lone wolf, on the other, a starved dog. Both howl at the sky and its implacable satellite. To stay constant and quiet is harder than anything. 8 legs, 2 pincers, forward curved tail, must crawl and lay low and advance all the while under a faint yellow glow to someplace unseen, and some light within that he cannot name asks how far he can get while the sun's gone away. And the moon holds a mirror to all grandiose figures. Oops, I just lost it because I actually was trying to admit someone. So we'll just end it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. The last writer in set number 3 will be Carrie Schiffler. And you're still on mute. You're still on mute. Oh, can we unmute her? No.
There we go. Now you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I've got 2 quick poems. These are unpublished, and they're very much works in progress. The first one, it was inspired by a line in the Brandi Carlile song, Stories. My eyes are framed by a murder of crow's feet. I swear they held a dance-off on my face. The blue bags have been there since I was a kid, working nights at the trauma triage, otherwise known as home. Fun fact, I can sweep glass, ice a broken nose, and crack jokes, all while on hold with the police. These marionette lines suggest I've been a puppet, spoken for and played with. True, when you let someone shove their hand up your ass and do all the talking for you, you learn there's no such thing as no strings attached. And the horizontal lines on my forehead cry out for music notes. An entire rock opera could be written up on there. Sometimes I hide these songs behind curtains, bangs before Botox. The deepest line of them all is also my favorite. It cleaves me in 2. The frown line, a badass axe wound, the angry cut of bitter disappointment and rage against injustice has staked its vertical claim between my eyes, and I fucking love it. My face, my stories, my body, my choice, my pain, my voice. And I'm going to leave you with my love song to Toronto, love-hate relationship with where I'm from. Toronto, I'm gonna walk all over you. The clomp of my determined docks, pound your concrete skin. Toronto, I'm gonna ride you. Your TTC is ecstasy to my car-free disability. Toronto, I'm going all the way on your go bus, go train, go, go, go. Toronto, you are my bitch. I'm gonna eat you out of house and home, custard tarts in Little Portugal, dim sum in Chinatown, fried cheese on the Danforth, and pizza everywhere else. Gonna eat like a pig in Hogtown, oink, oink, oink. Toronto, you are the bad boy of Canada. Montreal is the brooding artist. Vancouver, the actor turned yoga teacher. The East Coast has the drinkers, but you, Toronto, are the insecure rebel with size envy. You will never be New York. Get over it already. You are enough. Toronto, I love you, you egocentric, fragile flirt.
Great. Amazing. Love it. Okay, that's our third set. Time is 5:37. Shall we go to, once again, 5:40 or 5:45?
Let's say 5:45,
5:45.
just to give
Okay.
enough time for a break. And then that's like our final set of the whole thing.
The whole festival.
Yeah, so that calls for a water in, water out sort of situation. I'll put us on hold.
Okay, back at 5:45.
Welcome everyone to our final set of the whole festival, An Archive of Care. And starting out is going to be Alexia Cousineau.
Thank you. So I will be reading a poem, spoken word piece that I wrote very recently. I figured I would read it in honor of draft readings, being that it's still kind of in draft for me. So it's titled Make Yourself at Home, and just as a content warning, it does speak of domestic violence. I was raised believing my body was gifted to me, each beam of being lifted and placed precisely by hands who carried the weight of my future. I'd like to think that my parents spent years sketching blueprints, but it never quite felt like there was enough room for me, until after I'd moved out of their home. I keep trying to explain to people that my foundation was cemented long before I claimed this body as my own, long before I knew my body as a space that never needed to let everyone in. My family home is the destination. Christmas parties, Thanksgivings, birthdays, and celebrations of life, every event, childhood framed by white picket fence, afraid of cigarettes, swears, and alcohol. Above all, juice box kid, become careful, rule follower, grown daughter of a teacher. Sheltered meant safe. Body becomes a safe space, where with birthdays comes redecorated, painted nails on walls to hang up memories. My innocence gives way to curiosity. My body becomes a threshold. Skin becomes a freckled garden, where boys leave daisies on limbs with compliments, blushes blooming at every touch. I'd do anything to let him in. I settle into home. Through familiar scents of home-cooked meals, mom's lasagna wrapped around me like comfort, a perfume of heirlooms that stains lips red, seeps into hair. When I discover love, I move in quickly. I spend all my time there. Fresh paint, open windows, let sun kiss skin. Love feels like renovation. I lay a second foundation. Candlelit dinners and bookshelves filled with promises. Every summer, I plaster home with love notes. Let his name fill all the spaces. I strip floors bare and polish them pink, and the freckles come out again. Home was blue eyes, but then came constant need to apologize. Home was his arms, until arms made tears come, swallowed tears turned to heartbeat lodged in throat. Arms I still wrap myself in, though I'm not quite sure why. Something is wrong with home. I start to redecorate walls with unearned shame. He says we're fine, so why do I keep asking? But the floors quake when he walks in. There are lighter burns in my bed sheets. I Google search how to identify abuse. I read. I rearrange it all, fixer-upper, Google search feng shui. Maybe my heart doesn't belong in the center of my chest, so each morning I try it out on my sleeve. But by sundown, it's left tangled in my stomach. They say to clean, you must make a bigger mess, so I must be doing this right, right? I move out, move into fragments of safety, friends' couches, floors, body becomes chronic refuge. My last memory of him was the day I walked out for the last time. He threw a picture frame at me. When they took x-rays of my chest, they found the picket fence. When he leaves, I repaint the walls white. Try not to let everyone in too soon. I replace the welcome mat with security doorbell. Teach my hands to hold me, to fall asleep with my own hand on skin. These memories need more room than I can give them, so I pack them up and put them at the door. I replace the broken picture frame, a set of 3, and a year later I walk by the still empty frames, watch my reflection and whisper, welcome back. Make yourself at home. Make yourself at home. And I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexia. That was wonderful. And as you will see from the chat, people's responses still coming in. And next up, we have Carol Dunn.
Thank you. My name
right.
is Samantha Jones, and I'm calling in from Calgary, Alberta, Mohkinstsis, which is Treaty 7 territory. And so I thought I would just read you 2 poems today. Actually, maybe 2 short ones and then a medium one. So I'm going to share my screen here with you as well. The first 2 that I'm going to read are from my recent poetry book called Attic Rain, which is about living with OCD. And then the other longer one I'm going to read to you is about chronic pain, and it's got some mentions of medical care and hospitals and things like that. So just so folks are aware. Okay, so we'll start with the 2 about living with OCD. Something, the tip of the iceberg. Worries calving into home and work and everywhere in between. Underwater, under pressure, undercutting until I tumble and collapse into the sea. A wave sucks me down into a frigid pool, but I am ice. I push back to the surface. My apex bobs up over and over and punctures the slick skin between the sea and sky. And the second one I'm going to read from Attic Rain is called Polynya. And a polynya is an open water area in the ocean where you have, around it surrounded by sea ice. So you've got this unfrozen patch of water, polynya. I am an ice factory, building tiny rafts, sending them into the wind. I'm stubborn open water, pulling away scabs, quickly replaced by newer, thinner ones. And I'm going to just pop up a different window. Sorry, my camera quality is a little bit poor, but we'll make do. So this one is called Sciatica Ornithology, and it appeared in the spring issue of the Ex-Puritan just this year. And it's about chronic pain, back pain, and nerve pain. The start of something, a puffed out robin's chest. Calf muscles flutter, hundreds of feather tips lifted by the breeze. A beak pulling at a loose thread. The act of building a nest first requires something else to unravel. Spasms across the back of my thigh. Coyotes yelping into the night. a flock of partridges scattered. 7 a.m., packing another lunch, applesauce, hummus, berries, a tuning fork, struck. Rattles my leg, parched, ready to ignite. Blame the blackbird, such scored calls radiate down and out. Limbs all right angles, tense, body not meant to be square. Lie me flat, please. I beg until my back goes gray. Blood spot on my lower lip, I become the herring gull. Shh, the sacral bill of the white-faced ibis dips down below the map, searching, swallows in and out of the cliffside dosette. This time which trinkets are dropped into the gaping mouths of babies. Canada goose, just one, overwinters with a domestic flock. A crowd gathers. Everyone keeps asking, is it coming? Is it going? Instead of what does it need in that moment? As many doctors as sparrows in the grasses, I stop remembering them, abbreviate as spine appointment, meds appointment, shared appointment, sports appointment, and so on. And I'm submerged again, tunic damp, 3 days sweat, breach, body slick, can't quite, too late. Red slash up the collar, the loon crying out. And thank you so much. I will leave it there.
Thank you, Samantha. And finally, last but by no means least, we have Hardish, who is our treasurer as well as a wonderful writer. And just seems fitting for you to close tonight's event. All right, there we go. Take it away, Hardish.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you everybody for lovely readings. A little bit nervous. These are the opening pages of my current work in progress. Haven't read it to anybody else yet, so in the spirit of draft, here it is, and would love to know if it even begins to land or whether I'm completely barking up the wrong tree. Chapter 1, Cousins. Before we were, they were, the sun, the earth, the winds, and the briny waters. They had been here so long, and they were so lonely that when we appeared, they loved us immediately and took delight in nourishing us. The sun warmed us, the earth fed us, the waters let us drink deep, and the winds scattered us wherever we would go. We tasted their loneliness, and we vowed to never let them be alone, to be with them wherever they were, for they, the sun, the earth, the winds, and the waters, were our first cousins. But we were never lonely. How could we be alone when there were so many of us, when our cousins nourished us, where the wind brought the clouds to those of us that were far from water, and we unfurled our leaves and flowers to accept the warmth of the sun? Because, oh, how we flourished. Some of us loved the streams and the rivers and the oceans. For those of us, the water was like air. We grew in the warmest tropical waters and in the iciest rivers and streams. And some of us grew in parched, arid deserts where we slept until the great rainstorms came. And then we gobbled up the rains, hoarding them because we didn't know where the next ones would come. We unfurled our leaves, stretched out our branches as quickly as we could so as not to waste a single drop. And we put down roots so long, so deep that sometimes it seemed that we were in danger of them burning on the hot rocks that lay far below the surface. And we grew everywhere in between, places where we were careless of the water, places where it was so dark that we surfaced to greet the sun for just a few months every year. It was impossible for us not to flourish, impossible for us not to take joy in the generosity of our cousins, impossible for us to not greet the sun with our blooms. And long, long after we were, the fauna were. They were not us, but they were of us. We knew the sun, the earth, the winds, and the waters, but the fauna we did not know. They were anew, unknowing. We could not speak to them or understand them. They were, we decided, cousins of a different sort, so we gave to them as freely as the earth and the water and the sun had given to us. Some of the fauna were small as the tiniest of us. And some of them dragged our fallen leaves deep into the earth, enriching earth, so that we grew bigger, greener, and lusher ourselves. And some of them kept close to the earth, eating shoots and fruit, and carried us to new places where the winds could not. And some of them grew wings, soared over us. Some of us grew tall in return and reached into the sky so our fauna cousins could perch high above the earth and never, ever touch the ground. And just as we were glad to take from the sun and the earth and the winds and the waters, we were glad to give to the swimming, crawling, scurrying, running, flying fauna. And just as the sun did not lose part of itself when we accepted its warmth, we did not lose any part of ourselves when we offered up our roots, sapling, leaves, and fruits. Us and the fauna. We are everywhere. We are each of us, all of us. The memories of each live on in all. Together we grow, and together we change. For them, we grow grasses, the fruit, the nuts, the squash, and the beans, and they learn to survive on every part of us, but never too much, leaving enough for each other and for us for the next season. We grew, and they grew alongside us, so intertwined that it was impossible to tell which one of us loved the other more. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Hardish, what a wonderful.
Does it land?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's a completely new voice I'm writing in, so I have no real sense of it.
Yeah, you'll see all the comments in the chat, and it's just such a wonderful way to complete this weekend, really, with this whole dimension of care that you have opened up here. So I'm gonna stop the recording now, and not before thanking you all for your readings, and thanking Rolf and Hardish and Huria for all your work, and just everyone for this weekend. I'll stop the recording, but we can stay on for a few more minutes.